Good evening, Muttonistas. Some of you might find it a little bit odd that I've flown from Dublin today to the United States to Boston to try the Guinness here, but that's exactly what I've done. I'm absolutely knackered. I've had very little sleep and I've been working hard editing on the plane, but I'm ready to rumble even though the plane was 80 minutes late. So, Muttonistas, join me for my review of the best pints of Guinness in Boston. First pub up, Rushin Dub, or the Black Rose, very highly recommended pub. I have a funny feeling when I last was in Boston decades ago that I actually came here. How the pint is going to be, I don't know. It's the first one up. Will I use the Irish scale? Probably not. Will I use the British scale? Maybe, or maybe I'll make an American scale, because I honestly don't know what it's going to taste like. Let's think about it though, Muttonistas. Belfast, the Guinness, was a lot better than I remember it, and even though the pints in America used to taste like the average ones in Britain, I wasn't necessarily going to the best places, and I'm sure it's improved. Let's go in and find out. So I've come outside with the general manager, and I'm very pleased to report here at the Black Rose, 20-ounce imperial pints. No messing about, no cutting back on your pints and your creamers, Muttonistas. And I like the look of this pint. It's been drunk into form by the punters. I saw nearly everybody by the bar on the Guinness. Okay, I didn't look around the whole pub, but I'm hoping for good things here. Very, very nice pint, that is. Okay, I'm not going to say it's like the stuff I was getting in Dublin. I think we all know that isn't going to be the case, but we've made a good start here, Muttonistas. This one's a creamer. And of course, indoors there is live music going on. It would have been too loud for me to film with. I do like a bit of live music myself. I don't know whether they come on every night or not, but I've got the man beside me who can tell me. 7 nights a week, there you go. So if you want your creamers and live music, there you go, the Black Rose. Anyway, I'm going to move back inside because it is starting to rain here, and apart from obviously not wanting to get wet, I most certainly don't want my pint to get diluted. Right, Muttonistas, pub number 2, Mr. Dooley's. Now, some people in Boston think that the Holy Grail can be found within this establishment. I don't know, of course. We had a decent start at the Black Rose. However, I would say the pint was slightly bitter. I don't know how to judge it because it was the first pint I've had here for like donkey's years or decades, so I awarded it a creamer status. But so many people have said that this is much better. Even the general manager said this is good, and half of his staff drink here. Let's hope he's not wrong, Muttonistas. Maybe we could find our first absolute creamer in Boston within these walls. Okay, Muttonistas inside Mr. Dooley's, and there is an army of Muttonistas here who've been hopefully drinking the Guinness into form. So many people raving about the pint here, and I hardly could get a word in edgeways with people mobbing me to take selfies and stuff like that, but that is the way I love it, Muttonistas. So if you see me somewhere, please do not be frightened or scared to have a chat or ask for a selfie. Anyway, I waffle and digress again, on to the pint. It's better than the last pint. Unfortunately, I can't say it's an absolute creamer. A little bit of bitterness that basically makes it a little less than that. And I think I'm going to have to give America a completely different scale to both Britain and Ireland. Very nice pint. I can see why people rave about it here, but I think we're still on the hunt for our first absolute creamer over here in Boston. Anyway, this is going to be my last one of the evening because I'm absolutely shattered. And whilst I'd like to talk to you more about the pint and Boston, I'm going to have to leave that till tomorrow, and I'll see you then. Okay, Muttonistas, another day, another pub. It's pub number 3, the Druid in Cambridge, which is, well, I guess you'd call it a suburb of Boston. It's described as Cambridge, Massachusetts on its own. And I come to the Druid. A lot of you asked me to come here. There are a couple of pubs even further out that you'd asked me to go to, but this took me long enough, a lot longer than I'd expected, for about a 6 or 7 kilometre drive. Anyway, we're here, and the pub is packed full of Muttonistas. I wasn't expecting this because it's 3:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, but they're all here. Now, just one thing in terms of how I've been rating beers here. I think I'll have to have my own American scale. So if I find an absolute creamer here, it'll be like a creamer in England. Although I have to say all the Irish stuff is off the scale too good, and an average pint here maybe I wouldn't have in Ireland, not because I wouldn't drink it, but because I know I can get a lot better. But it's different here, we have to accept that. But I'm going to see what the most recommended pub, or one of the most recommended pubs by you the Muttonistas, serves up in terms of their pint. Is it a 16 ounce? Is it a 20 ounce? You'll have to wait and see. Welcome indeed here in the Druid, Muttonistas. Sounds like a place I should be spending all night in rather than just doing a 2-pint review in. But we better get on with that so we get to the next place. But I have seen a certain flag in the distance.
Here we go. Let's go.
So, Muttonistas, the pint at the Druid. I can't say the Muttonistas haven't been drinking it into form, because it has been drunk into form. What a show at 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. It looks good, correct size head, temperature feels good, and it's in an imperial glass, a 20-ounce glass, which is very, very important, because those 16-ounce glasses, well, for me they're okay, but you finish them a bit too quickly and then you find you want another all of a sudden. But let's give this one a go. I like that. I like that. If I were drinking in England, I'd say that's a creamer. In Ireland, I'd say it's a very good pint, but in terms of my new US scale, that's an absolute creamer. It's the best one I've had so far on this trip. Muttonistas, you were right to bring me here, and I have to be thankful that people have been drinking this well into form. And it is amazing, Muttonistas, how often it's worth taking a little detour to get the best pints. You've seen me do it in London, you've seen me do it in Dublin, you've seen me do it in all sorts of places, and here is not an exception. Get yourselves in an Uber, it's about, 25 minutes from the centre on a good day. This was a bad day, so it was 45 minutes. But I suspect that you'll find that this is not a one-off, because I reckon the locals here are hammering this into form every day. And in terms of the pub itself, great old school wooden panelling, as I said, outside in a bit of a hipster area, which is good. And I'm not exactly sure how late this place opens, but I'll find out for you in a minute. I suspect you can have a few good late nights here. And of course the best person to ask was the barman himself, who said last call 1:55, closing at 2 a.m. Of course I'll be sound asleep by then, because that will feel like 7 a.m. in Ireland and Britain. Coming to the end of the pint, and the head has stayed true right to the end, very important. Good lacing or cream around the side of the glass. And I was just talking with some of the other punters here, so I wouldn't be too unhappy with this in Ireland, I really wouldn't. Wow, could I have stumbled on the best pint that I'm going to have during this trip? Well, we'll have to wait and see, but this is a very, very high benchmark. Okay, Muttonistas, onwards and upwards. Next to one of the places I've been really looking forward to visiting, the Trillium Brewery tap room. Highly regarded brewery, even over the other side of the Atlantic. I believe they're mainly into their NEIPAs and hazy pales. We'll have to see. They might be a bit sweet for me, but they have promised that they've got a nitro stout on. Right, Muttonistas, after a savage journey, when they talk about speeds, 10 kilometres an hour is about what it was to come from the Druid here to the Trillium 4-point tap room. I'm looking forward to this. They have a huge reputation. I was warmly welcomed by Liam, who explained a bit of the range. So as always, when it comes to breweries, I'll try a few fourths or fifths of a pint and then have a pint of something I really like afterwards. Anyway, we're running well behind time. There's an army of Muttonistas in there, so I better get on with this and start reviewing and tasting. And what about that, Muttonistas? Another incredibly warm welcome. It looks like the beer is as good as the welcome here. I can see it's being drunk into full, and what variety they have here. And it's not just going to be about stouts. We're in New England, so a New England IPA or two will be on my tasting list. Remember, fourths or fifths of a pint, so we don't leave here absolutely trolleyed. Some of the Muttonistas or punters here have told me, apart from those 4 taps you can see over there, there are about 30 underneath the lines. A lot of choice here, so I'm going to need Liam, the head brewer or manager here's help to help me select which ones I'm going to try out. Obviously I'll try their regular stout, but I want to try their specialities as well, the New England IPAs. Okay, Muttonistas, Liam, who I think is in charge of the show here, I don't know if he owns or is the manager, but he has given me a few of his suggestions, which obviously I've had a bit of input into. They're in a little tray, like a little tasting rack. I'm not going to have all of those because some of these beers are quite strong. But we're going to start from lightest to heaviest, weakest to strongest. And we're going to start off with something you don't see me drinking very often, a lager. So, first up we have Foda Lager, a white bread, floral and slightly oaky noted lager, 5.5% strong. If you were to buy this here, you'd get an American pint, 16 ounces, for $8. And just a reminder, Muttonistas, this brewery is highly regarded on the other side of the Atlantic, so we're not going to have a sweet NEIPA or New England IPA fest here. Anyway, the lager. I'm not a lager man, but actually this reminded me a little bit of some of the stuff I was having in Munich. I wouldn't be able to actually put a name to it, but it's the sort of thing that it reminds me of. It is a little bit floral though, which is not my cup of tea. Anyway, on to the more serious brews, their specialities, the NEIPAs, or the New England IPAs. Next we have Launch Beer, an American pale ale with mosaic and citra, and it should have notes of melon, mango peel and lime. 5.4% ABV, $9 for a 16-ounce pint. Now I know what you're thinking, Muttonistas, this looks like a glass of orange juice, but it's far from it. And a lot of the New England pales are somewhat hazier than this, all to do with at which point the lactose is infused into the brewing process. Yeah, slightly effervescent, exactly as described in the notes. It's got a little bit of citrus and it's got melon. It's got some hoppiness and it's not too sweet either, so that is something that is up my street. Having said that, I did tell Liam I don't really like the sweet ones, so we stayed away from them. Okay, our third beer is called Campanula, a double IPA with citrus and Nelson's Sauvin. So it should have notes of zested lemon, orange juice and Sauvignon grape. A little bit unusual, if I may say so. And this one's quite strong, comes in at 8%, so you don't want to be having a massive session of pints of this. So I do think I preferred the launch beer to this. This is quite nice, but a bit strong for me. And I'm not sure that the orange and Sauvignon juice really does it for me. I think I prefer the citrus notes of the launch beer. But having said that, Muttonistas, I'm sure some of you would like that. Again, I'm pleased to report that it's not too sweet, because some New England IPAs, they really can be horrendously sweet. And now, Muttonistas, the first of our roasty dark offerings, Underneath the Secret Stairs. It's a stout that comes in at 5%, so pretty sessionable, espresso, toffee and cocoa notes. I do like the flavours of that actually. It's a keg stout, it's not nitro keg, so you don't get the creamy head that you get on a Guinness or other independent nitros. But that was pretty flavoursome, albeit a little bit sweet. I do like coffee stouts, you get a heavy hint of that, and you get that little bit of sweetness as well. But I think so far, I'm not sure, I think that's my preferred option. And then the Vanilla PM Dawn, an imperial coffee stout, 9%, and you get a 10-ounce glass of that for $9. Hints of vanilla latte, pot de creme and molasses. That's a bit unusual, I have to say. Is this going to be like a sweet and sour stout? I don't know what to make of that, Muttonistas. The flavours are nowhere near as strong as I thought they'd be. There is quite a bit of coffee in, but I suppose the previous stout, that Underneath the Secret Stairs, had masses and masses of coffee and toffee. That this one, I don't know, it's a little strong for me as well. So I'd say Underneath the Secret Stairs is the winner of the two. And finally, Muttonistas, onto the German chocolate cake donut stout. It says it's barrel aged in an imperial stout, which it would have to be that strength, and it comes in at 12%. Go easy on this one, folks, I will. Sweet, good basic flavours, but I know a lot of people like this, including the folks around me, but that's like alcoholic treacle for me. It is way too strong for a stout, in my opinion. But if you want to drink stout in small quantities and have strong ones, those imperial stouts are good. And I'd say actually maybe that one gets the edge over the Vanilla PM Dawn I just tried, which for me didn't have enough flavour. But I'm afraid, as always, Muttonistas, the session beers win out for me. As usual, I'm going to have a pint of something so I get the full flavours. Do I go for that stout? No, I think I'm going to go for the pint of launch beer, or a pint of launch beer, because it is their speciality, one of their signature beers here. Although I believe I might be getting something from Liam from a can as well to try. Anyway, when he comes back, I am going to have a pint of launch beer. I haven't drunk all of those. I can't possibly do so because I'd be, well, on my arse coming out of here if you add those to a couple of pints. So Muttonistas, launch beer won it at the end of the day. It is one of their specialities, so maybe not a surprise. Stouts were good, although a bit sweet and not nitro. But I believe possibly a can of Irish nitro is going to appear later. Oh yeah, actually better from a pint glass. It's cold, refreshing, it's a summery drink. It's moderately hot, not as hoppy as I like. As I said, not sweet, and the citrus is very, very appealing. Mango, peel and melon, so that adds a very, very interesting mixture of tropical and summer fruits. And Muttonistas, 5%, it's something you can drink for a while. Of course, if you come here, there's an enormous range of beverages you can drink. Anyway, Muttonistas, onwards and upwards, still running an hour late. I hope the traffic's died down and we're off next to another Irish pub called the Dubliner. Okay, Muttonistas, mutton telling absolute pork pies again. I'm not quite ready to go off to the Dubliner yet because I was treated to a can of that Irish stout, drier and more sessionable at 5.2%. And this is good, it's really good, it's a creamer. I just wish instead of having it from a keg or a similar can without a widget that they could put it on nitro. Apparently they do sometimes, and they just run out of it at one of their sister brewery tap rooms before I came. I think I'll have to wait till winter and come here again if I'm to try it on nitro, which I hope I do. Can't guarantee I will be though, but when I try this on nitro, wow, it could be a candidate for an absolute creamer. Anyway, Muttonistas, now I am off to the Dubliner. I'll see you soon, and we'll go back to the Guinness. Okay, Muttonistas, venue number 5 of my Boston tour, the Dubliner. A lot of you recommended this pub, and wow, what a welcome outside and inside. Let's hope that this pint, given I've arrived 40 minutes late, has been hammered into form by the Muttonistas and is a creamer or an absolute creamer on what I have invented as a new North American scale. Let's go in, because I believe somebody's already got me a pint very kindly. Okay, Muttonistas, what a rapturous welcome I received here at the Dubliner. People queuing outside to see me, and I am going to stay as long as is necessary to have selfies with those who want to have them. Anyway, on to the pint. I've had to escape to the restaurant area because I was mobbed in the bar area with people wanting selfies and a chat. There's the Mutton flag out there as well, and it's at a nice temperature, poured by the master barman at the bar, and I've just had a selfie with the manager who is having one of these as well, so it should be pretty good. Yeah, it is pretty good. About the same as Mr. Dooley's, I'd say, where I went to last night. Not as good as the Druid, where I was earlier, but still pretty good. And on my new American scale, it is a creamer. I'm not going to waffle on anymore because it is absolutely heaving in here, and I've got a lot of people to see. So much so that the Dubliner has called their sister bar, Emmet's, to tell them that I'll be running a little bit late. And this time, not because of the traffic, just because of the number of people who have come to see me. Isn't it wonderful? Muttonistas, isn't this what great nights are made for? Right, Muttonistas, final pub of day 2, Emmet's. It's been a 4 pub day, which is quite heavy. given the, shall we say, Muttonista love I received at the Dubliner beforehand. So if you see me declining to add an extra pub when you want me to go wherever, this is why. It is tough work. Anyway, work I'm happy to partake in, and there was some debate about whether the pint at Emmet's or the Dubliner is better. There's only one way to find out, because some have said it's Emmet, some have said the Dubliner. Let's go in to what looks like an absolutely rammed pub and see what it's like. Well, there you go. Tell people in Boston where you're going and they turn up en masse. Very nice looking pint we have here. Good temperature as well. When I went out on the first night, I felt they were a little bit on the warm side, but not by much. So I'm hoping for good things here. And look at the head as well. Looks pretty white and clear. Not a bubble in sight on the top. I'm going to say that's about the same as, well, maybe slightly better actually than the Dubliner. If you have a look on the outside, there's a lot more cream there, a lot more lacing. There is a slight sourness or bitterness, which you tend to get basically outside Ireland everywhere. So I'm going to call this one a creamer Muttonistas on my American scale. So great to have so many Muttonistas here, and a lot of them actually talking to each other about beer and other matters. It does mean, though, that I'm going to have a hell of a lot of selfies to take or be taken of me at the end of the evening. But I will do that. When you come to see me, Muttonistas, unless the place floods or catches fire, you get your selfie. So when people say, add an extra venue, you've got to come to this pub, that pub, well, I think you'll understand now that it is a lengthy commitment. So if I do that, I'll do it on the sly, so you only see it when I film it. Anyway, I'm going to finish this pint, and then I will be on to the review for Instagram, which is always one of the highlights of the evening. Right, Muttonistas, coming to the end of the pint. The last pint, well, at least the last pint that you'll see on this YouTube video of today in Boston. How do I rate this in total? Because, I mean, the first sip doesn't tell you everything, and I've decided that this is just a bit richer and creamier than the Dubliners. I rated it a creamer. I think the second best pint I've had so far after the Druid. So I'll roll the video on to tomorrow. Hope for 3 more mad venues and mad day here in Boston, finishing with a massive Muttonista meetup. But I'll see you tomorrow and you'll find out much more about it. Right, Muttonistas, on to JJ Foley's South End. They have 2 pubs, one fairly central, this a little bit to the south of the city. I wasn't intending to video here at all. I had a brutal 4 pub day. Don't forget that's 8 pints, 1 for Instagram and 1 for YouTube at each pub, and 1 to myself at the end. But the pub did keep messaging me, and my followers kept telling me that I should go to this pub, so I did. I had to squeeze it into my already congested itinerary with 3 pubs to visit, and I couldn't ask any followers to come. Unfortunately, it would have added too much time. It would have meant I would have had to go at breakfast time. Unfortunately, I'm having to voice this over because the music wasn't completely off. If you want me to come and review a pint at your pub, if I'm doing YouTube, please, please, please turn it off, because otherwise sometimes the copyright software picks these things up and I have to either scrap the segment or do a voiceover. Anyway, still glad I came, because this pint was an absolute creamer. I would say it was possibly the best pint I had, not only in Boston, but on the whole of my US tour. That is saying something. There were a few people drinking it. The pub's divided into two, and I had that room to myself. Maybe the music was coming from the other room. Anyway, it's a great location. I was a bit sorry to see it wasn't so busy, but it was a weekday, a working day in the middle of the afternoon. Anyway, what a belter of a pint, and now we'll move on back to the live action at Rosa Lyons, a pub that had previously reached out to me.
No, the bag. I was like, that looks like a very nice bag. There's always I like the camera.
Okay, Muttonistas, pub number 8, or venue number 8, Rosa Lyons. Obviously my second today. I've not been to 8 pubs and had 16 pints or anything like that, but it looks like they serve a pretty good looking pint of Guinness here, if I can pick that up. No bubbles on the head, clean white head, ruby red bottom, and they weren't sure in terms of how to rate a Guinness, the management, when I reached out to them. Quite highly regarded as a restaurant as well. I don't know whether people are eating at 3 in the afternoon, but it is actually working day again, and it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So pleased to see so many Muttonistas come out and meet me. Anyway, time to vlog the pint, and I'm going to take a seat to do that, so I'll be with you in a second. Right, Muttonistas, the pint itself. It feels reasonably cool or cold, which I suspect is going to be necessary in the summer months here. And I actually overdressed a little bit to come here. That jacket, well, I need it to store microphones and things, but a bit superfluous. I actually liked the weather yesterday when it was about 18 degrees and a little bit damp. But that is just me. I'm sure you'd prefer this, 25, 26, and very, very sunny. Anyway, enough prattle from me and more reviewing. So, on my American scale, I'm going to rate this a creamer. It's not an absolute creamer like the last pint, but it is a very solid pint. And it doesn't have that excessive bitterness that a few pints I've had here have had. And it's at a pretty good temperature as well. So, if you're in this area, and I believe the south side of Boston is actually quite an Irish part of Boston. So, it is a decent pint if you come down here. Of course, it helps that there is a crowd of Muttonistas in the bar who've been drinking it into form. I guess if you come on a normal working day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe it's not been passed through the lines quite as much as this. Anyway, Muttonistas, as always, I'll savour this pint a little bit more and give you my final thoughts on it when I actually get to the bottom of it. Okay, Muttonistas, as I did say, it's not as good as Foley's, but it's still a good pint. It's a creamer. And I did meet a couple from the UK who reckon this is the best pint in this part of Boston, and they're probably right, I think. Imperial pints all the way, 20 ounces, very impressed with that. Foley said they only do that for Guinness. I'm not sure about that here, because they do obviously have quite a range in each pub. And again, as I said, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, really busy pub. I love that. It's really naughty people coming, clocking off work early to enjoy a pint with the Primemutton, and I salute them for that. And I also salute the patrons of the pubs and also the management. I mean, everywhere I've been, there are people wishing to buy me a pint, even if the bar is covering the beer, and usually free food when I'm hungry. In fact, Foley's did offer me some, but I had so little time. Anyway, let's finish the pint and we will move on to our next pub called Ayr, as in the Irish spelling of Ireland. Very late addition to the list, but again, a lot of you recommended it, so let's hope it's good. You've been good with your recommendations so far. Right, Muttonistas, 9th pub, penultimate pub of the day, penultimate pub of the whole trip to Boston. Very Irish-American part of Boston, Dorchester. Is it part of Boston? Is it a separate place? It just says Dorchester, MA. Anyway, this part of the state of Massachusetts, very Irish. A bar or an Irish fair place called Scobie's, an Irish bakery, and importantly behind me the Ayr pub, or Ayra, the Irish name for the Republic of Ireland. I believe there's a horseshoe bar in here, one side for the Irish, one for the Americans. I think I'm walking on the American side of the bar, but that's actually disappeared, I believe, that tradition. Used to be called a men's bar because they had a special license years ago. They've been open, well, for about 60-70 years, and until the early 80s it was allowed to have bars for men only. Anyway, I believe a lot of Muttonistas are waiting for me inside, and none other than Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan have drunk in this pub. They're probably better at politics. Maybe I'm better at reviewing a pint than they are. So as usual, things have overrun a bit here, Muttonistas. I'm late, but the Muttonistas are all here, and I do hope they've drunk the pint of Guinness here into form. Okay, Muttonistas, on to the Ayr pub. Good looking pint, no bubbles on the top, creamy looking head, a little bit on the cold side though, I'd say, but thankfully, because I was late as usual for everything other than my birth, the crowd and the Muttonistas have been drinking this into form, or so I believe. But there's only one way to find out for sure, Muttonistas. Very solid pint, very slightly bitter, but it is still a creamer, Muttonista. I think it's fair to say that was a popular verdict. Anyway, I'll give you some more thoughts on the pint when I get down to the bottom before departing onto the big meet-up at Kilroy's in Quincy. Okay, Muttonistas, just a bit more than halfway through the pint, and I've been explaining to some of the followers here that when I call things creamers and absolute creamers here, it's not the same as in Ireland. Probably not the same as in Britain, more like in continental Europe. But the point is, if I judged everything in comparison to what I get to the top spots in Ireland, I wouldn't be giving out any accolades at all, other than to a few places in Britain. I know this is solidly good, this is Muttonistas, and you might say, oh, how come you've just gone around giving everywhere on this video creamers or absolute creamers? Well, there's a reason for that. I did shoot at a few places where I didn't like the Guinness. Not at all. Bad pints, I'm not going to name and shame them, but my policy is that I discard those reviews. I'm not there to ruin people's businesses, but I'm not going to promote something that's not good either. Anyway, I better get on with this because we're running late again. and the atmosphere is cracking here. I've still got the Instagram review to do, and then the massive Mutton Easter meetup, which will be my last point of call in Boston at Kilroy's in Quincy. Okay, Muttonistas, final pub of my tour of Boston. Is it a pub or is it a bar/restaurant? It's called Kilroy's on the Square. A long way south of the centre of Boston in Quincy, but it looks like quite a leafy suburb, and I can tell excitement is bubbling in there. A lot of people waving at me, a lot of people in Muttonista t-shirts, and this is what I call a Muttonista meetup, where people who follow me and have the same interests can meet me and meet each other as well. And of course I'll be here for quite a while, sometime after I put the camera down, to meet and have chats and selfies with everybody. In the meantime, let's go in and do the most important thing and test the Guinness in there.
I'm on the door detail. How you doing, Brian?
Hi. Hello everybody, hello. Well, another rapturous reception, Muttonistas. Let's hope the pint is as good as the welcome. I hope that the Muttonistas have drunk this one into form for me, because as usual, I'm half an hour late. Okay, Muttonistas, the Guinness is being hammered into form here to the point whereby there's had to be a sudden change of keg. So whilst there's a bit of a delay, I've explained to everybody what happens at a Muttonista meetup, whereby I do my own little thing for YouTube first, in my own privacy with the music off, and then at that point I have my second pint and do the hallowed Instagram review, and then I have selfies and chats with everybody who wants one. Everybody here has given me good reports of the Guinness so far. It's a fresh keg, and I think I'm going to have like the 6th or 7th out of it. What can possibly go wrong, Muttonistas?
That's a great prop. Right here!
It's because I took my hat off, I know.
I know,
That's,
I didn't recognize you without it. There you go, cheers.
Okay, Muttonistas. The crowd here has gone silent, my friends, my Muttonistas, because the Houston we have a problem moment has been solved, and we now have a pint of Guinness in front of us, which is nearly settled but needs a few more seconds. I just checked with people here. This is officially a suburb of Boston, I believe, and not a city in its own right, although in the United States we are talking about things on a much bigger scale, so probably a lot more people live here than in a lot of European cities. Anyway, I think the pint is just about ready. Pretty respectable head here, no spots on it, right sized head, decent temperature, and of course an imperial glass. I'm sure I'm going to get quite a lot of 16-ounce glasses on this tour of the US, but I'm glad to report that in Boston and its surrounding areas, every single pint has come in a 20-ounce imperial glass. Of course, the most important thing, as always, is the flavour. I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. I wouldn't say it's like the number one pint I've had in the Boston area, but it's very good. It's up there towards the top of the 10 places I visited and 2 places where I got served absolute shockers and discarded the reviews. And Muttonistas, yes, it's a creamer. And I think the Muttonistas were pretty impressed with that, and I can see that those pints are flowing out thick and fast. Boy, they are hammering this into form. I'll be back with you a little bit later when I get towards the bottom of the pint. Well, Muttonistas, this pint does keep getting better and better. So glad I came here. And when I contacted Paul, who runs the bar, I said to him, how would you rate your Guinness? He said, well, not the best in Boston, but pretty decent. That is an understatement. It is more than decent. What a place, what a tour. 10th pub, end of my tour of Boston. Loads more to come from the United States. Another heavy day coming tomorrow. A train to Rhode Island and then to New York. I'll put those, of course, in separate videos. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye to you all Muttonistas from an absolutely rammed Kilroy's on the Square in Quincy. Please remember, as always, to keep liking, keep sharing, keep subscribing. But most of all, Muttonistas, don't forget, you can't beat a bit of mutton.